Well, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the EntreMD podcast. And you are in for a treat because I have Dr. Cheruba Prabakar here. And my goodness, she's had a phenomenal journey as an entrepreneur. And I'm so grateful that she's here to share it with you. So, Dr. Cheruba, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Una. It really is a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and likewise, likewise. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment to introduce yourself to the listeners so they know why I'm so excited that you're on the show today.
Yes, I am Dr. Cheruba Prabakar, and I'm a board certified OBGYN and also a minimally invasive surgeon. And I trained in the East Coast in New York, and then met my husband and moved out here to the West Coast and started practice in a big employed institution, as a lot of the job opportunities out here were like that. And things were great for quite a few years. I learned a lot. I saw a lot, met great people. And after about 5 years, I started feeling like this can't be it. Like, this is it. Like, oh, I'm still so young in my career. There's got to be more. I mean, the practice of, the patients and the medical aspect is fine, but gosh, I'm really not having that much control over my schedule and my life and things. There's got to be something more, and so I started searching for that. And it took me a couple of years to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. But then I finally opened my doors in fall of 2022 to my own private practice.
Yikes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And
yes.
oh man. So let me ask you this though. Did you ever plan to open a practice?
When I went to medical school, that was actually my dream, and that's what I thought I would do. Um, I would finish my medical training, open up my own practice, and that's the model that I saw around me. And even in residency, I did my OB/GYN residency in New York, and I saw a lot of private practices, groups of two, three, sometimes larger, six, seven, and I was like, okay, this is kind of what I'm going to do. But interestingly, when I came out here to the West Coast, I looked around and I didn't see those models of practice anymore. And I think that could be a geographical difference, as well as kind of the times are rapidly changing, and a lot of practices were being bought up by big, kind of corporate medical entities. And so when I was looking for my first job, I couldn't find those groups of two or three or six. It was all these, join this big institution, join this big corporation. And so I thought, okay, well, I mean, I guess this is my first job, and I didn't really know any better, and I was like, well, I need experience. Let me just, get started. And then the more as time went on, I realized that there were, maybe two or three small practices, but they were also being rapidly absorbed by the big institutions. So this dream of opening a practice was kind of fleeing away from me, so to speak. I thought maybe there's a way I could make it happen, but then I sort of, resigned to the fact that, okay, I guess, that's just never going to be for me. Yeah.
Wow. So opening your doors really is like a dream come true. Like it's not it is what it is. It's a dream come true.
Yeah, it really is. This is how I saw myself. And then in the intervening years, I didn't think it was possible. And certainly it wasn't possible for me because, I don't have any connections. I don't have a parent, with a practice who can hand off a practice to me or anything like that. So even if it was possible in my mind, I couldn't do it. It wasn't for me. And there's no way I could pull that off, you know?
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So where was the turning point, right? So you moved to the West Coast, you have the job, you're doing that. You'd even gotten to a point where you're like, there must be more, but you thought that for a year or 2 years. At what point did the switch start? Did the switch go on?
Yeah. So I think in 2020, during the pandemic, I think a lot of people were reevaluating what they wanted to do, including myself. And I started reaching out to other people who had private practices. Again, in this area, there were only a handful. And many people just discouraged me, and they were like, I don't know, it's really hard these days, and this and that. And then in the summer of 2021, I joined the EntreMD Business School. And I saw examples of people doing it. I saw examples of people doing private practice and more. And I was like, if it's possible for them, maybe it's possible for me. And I think that was the switch for me. And getting that kind of coaching, uh, and really in real life seeing other women physicians killing it out there, and creating the practice of their dreams. And I said, I have the desire. I know I have what it takes. So why not me? And so then my whole narrative started turning, and I started, instead of saying like, well, there's no way that can be me, I started saying, how can that be me? And I
Mm.
spent the next year, you know, doing figuring that out, and it was extremely scary, but I did it, and I opened my doors October 2022.
Okay, so there's so much to unpack here. But there is something about seeing examples, right? Like real life examples. That's part of why you're on the podcast. So somebody listening could go like, wait a minute, right? So this is not a theory. This is not someone who fell from the sky. This is a doctor like me, and they did what? Right? And so the power of an example, right? Which means two things really. One is that we should do what you did, which is find a place where the examples of what is possible and insert ourselves there. You know what I mean? And
Right, right.
then we should also aspire to be examples for someone else. Like there is somebody, Dr. Cheruba, who's going to go like, you know what? I never thought I could. And I listened to this episode of the EntreMD podcast, and Dr. Cheruba shared her story. And it occurred to me that I can switch from, oh, well, that can never be me, to how can I? Right. And
Yes,
that was the statement that changed everything. So
yes.
examples are so powerful. And I'm glad you put yourself in a room of examples. And I'm glad you're being an example, you know?
Yes, that is so true. And I think, when I first floated this idea, and we've talked about this before, but so many well-meaning people, including my attendings from residency and other people, are like, "Nah, that's not going to work. Ooh, be careful. That's a bad idea." And they probably try to protect me from how they see medical practice, today. But we know that things are rapidly changing. There are new ways to doing things, and so I essentially had to reinvent myself and put myself in a room where people were as forward thinking as I wanted to be, and were even ahead of the curve than as I wanted to be. And so, as you said, seeing those real life examples, being able to talk to them and say, "Hey, how did you do this? Like, what what do you think about this idea?" And having those uh, examples and mentors with other physicians who have kind of risen against the odds. And I'm in the Bay Area, like I said, where private practice in the true sense is just not really existing anymore. And so it was even harder for me. I felt like I was really kind of pushing against gravity here, compared to the East Coast where I trained. So that was an additional thing. But I didn't let that stop me. I said, here are people who have done amazing things, and I'm just in a different area, maybe in a different specialty or different field, but why not? Let me see how I can do it.
Oh man, this is good. Okay. Now I'm going to take you back to something you said, because you said you came into the community, you found other people doing it. Because when you came in, it wasn't quite at that point. We're working on, the business before the business. You're building out your brand as the fibroid doc and things like that. And you said it took you a year. You start asking the question, how can I? And it took you a year to when you now figured it out and then opened your doors. So how did you manage that year, right? Because sometimes in entrepreneurship people are like, we want instant gratification, we want the results now, and there's some things that happen really quickly, there's some things that happen not as quickly, but at the end they're all good. So how did you not quit over the year? How did you stay the course?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that has been one of the hardest years for me, actually. Um, Work was easy. I went in and I saw my 20, 25 patients, whatever, that was easy. But uh, kind of balancing that security, um, I had insurance through my job for my family. I have 3 kids. My husband runs a startup, so he is busy in himself. So, I had to ask a lot of questions like, is this the right time? Like, is it really worth starting up something and facing a lot of these uncertainties at this time when we're in a busy part of our lives? What would I do for medical insurance? What if I can't make that kind of salary, in the first few years? What are my backups? How do I start a practice, right? Like how I don't know the first thing about that. Opening a business bank account. There's so many things I had to, figure out. But, as I learned in EntreMD Business School, we don't overwhelm, and it's progress over perfection. So as you said, the first few months, I just, learned how to build my brand, make videos, get out there. I was a very private person, never put myself on social media. But actually enjoy doing it, and I just kind of use that momentum to get going. Then I started a YouTube channel, then I started doing podcasts, then I talked to a lawyer to figure out, okay, how would this work? How would I open a practice? What kinds of funds do I need? Then I started talking to my husband about, could we get on medical insurance from his job? What are the other types of backup revenue sources that I could have? Can I take some ER call? Can I take some OB calls? So I just started working on one thing at a time, and finally, after about, 8 months, I said, okay, still don't have all the pieces, but in order to move forward, I need to let my job know that I am leaving. And that was very scary, call after call from the EntreMD Business School. I'd come on and people would be like, yay, I left my job. And I'm like, oh, I wish I was there. I wish like I, had all the pieces. But, I knew when the right time was, and I had to give in my notice. And then I was able to free up mental energy and space to really work on what I wanted to do, which was start my practice. And so the next 3 or 4 months, I really started to, figure out all of those pieces. And when I opened my doors, I still didn't have everything figured out, but I had enough to see a patient, write a note, keep my chart. I was a solopreneur. I had no employees, but I had a phone number, I had a website, and that's it. And then every day I just moved on and did a little bit more. And it's still a work in progress. But you know what? It's my 4th month in business. I'm seeing patients and I'm doing it.
Oh man. Okay. So this is so powerful because what you're describing is the process of not doing overwhelm, right? Like you feel the feelings, you know all the things that needs to be done, but looking at all of them and saying, well, my next thing is this, and we're just going to do it one thing at a time. That is so good.
Right, right.
So good.
I put a big poster board on in my closet, and I wrote down in little blocks all the things I had to do just to get things open. And I just started checking things off, one week at a time. And then I opened, and then you just kind of go with it. And I knew I had that community. I could quickly text somebody and say, oh my gosh, I forgot all about this. Like, how do I get employee insurance? And, 5 people will respond. And so leaning on that community, that back and forth was so helpful rather than just me being trying to figure this all out on my own.
Yeah. I usually say there's no reward for doing it all on your own. Like there's no special award. Like, you did it all by yourself. So
That's
let's
right.
talk about the community piece, right? Because there's one thing about being in the right community, and there's another thing about leveraging the community, right? And so if somebody is in a community, somebody listening is even in EBS, right? What are the things that you've done? When I say take advantage, it sounds bad, right? But take advantage of the fact that you're in this community of a group of physicians in all kinds of businesses at all stage of business and all of those things. How do you leverage that for business success?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is I really show up to as many calls as I can, at the live sessions. And if not, I listen to it, right away the next day. I show up to the events, the live events, and that's quite a bit, coming all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast, finding childcare for 3 of my kids and all of that. But, I plan it well in advance, and I make sure I'm there because it's just magical, and being able to talk to these doctors that I only see on calls. And, I can just get so much more information in 10 minutes than I would, texting back and forth. So I definitely do that. And then I I try to look at who I can speak to answer that particular question that I need for that week. Because otherwise, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And there's a lot of chats and a lot of side groups, and it's very easy to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. So I just say, okay, what is the one question I need to figure out this week? And let me see who's done it. And let me like DM them, give them a call. And, the community is just so supportive. And so that's sort of how I've done it, and it's been working really well. And at the
And it's
same
been
time,
working.
it's been working. And at the same time, unknowingly, I've been helping other people. They're like, "Oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear. I'm so glad like you did that. Can you tell me how you did it?" And so it's a win-win all around.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And we're all about the win-win. Okay, so we are 4 months in practice. Talk to us. How is life on the other side of your decision?
Yeah. So I mean, I I really there's really no words. I mean, it is a lot of work. It is some stress, of course, because it is my thing now. And no one's giving me a paycheck. I have to figure out how to get that. But the I was just telling my husband this week, when we were out on a date, that I can't even recognize who I am this 2023. Like the intentions that I have for this year, who I've become, the things I've accomplished, not just in my business, but the skills that I have learned to start this business and run it have poured over to all other areas of my life. And that to me is, I mean, invaluable. Like, how I eat, how I exercise, how I spend time with my kids, how I prioritize things. So these are things that, I didn't know I was getting when I signed up, but here I am. And probably the best part is the control I have over my schedule. I mean, I'll be honest, if I know that I have to take my kids to a piano lesson, I end my day at 4 o'clock. And, no one's telling me that I have three more patients to see. None of that. It's all on me. And that's really invaluable. Yeah.
So good. It's so funny, right? Like, okay, so for instance, in the EntreMD Business School, we did our, you know, 2022 in review posts. Like, people just came out to talk about, their wins over the year, lessons they learned, and all those things. And it's amazing how much our business stuff spilled over to our personal lives. Like, I just had a lot of fun watching that because the thing about business is, like you've experienced, you have the opportunity to serve a lot of people, you have the opportunity to earn and all of these things. And if I remember you correctly, you started making money from day one. Like, people were swiping cards from day one. And but it's almost like the most rewarding part ends up being the person you become.
Absolutely.
Is just the person you become in the process. And it does spill over because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So it spills over to your entire life. And you just like, I like this version of me. Like, what else could I
Yeah.
pull out of me?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I think back to other New Year's, and I think like as December 30th would approach, I'm like, I guess I should come up with a resolution for this year. That's kind of how, I was rolling.
Not
And
now.
not now.
Not
Now I
now.
have it all planned out, several weeks in advance, and I am hitting the ground running January 1st. I'm not waking up thinking, what shall I do today? No, I have it all planned out. And that's kind of how I approach life. And people look at me often. I think people looked at me even before and said, how do you do it all? Three kids, married, you're involved in your church, you're doing all these activities, you're a doctor. People ask that of me then, but boy, they're not ready for me next year.
Then they're not ready. They are not ready. Oh my goodness. So what would you tell the doc who's where you were, right? Like, so this is when you're just like, there's more. So they're even uncertain. They may not even be crystal clear what more is, but maybe they don't know what next steps to take, or they know, but they're super scared. What would you tell that person?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is, you know, anything is possible. Like your dream is possible, and not just to look around you and say, well, no one's doing it, or it's never going to fly in this market, or everybody's saying it's a bad idea. If you really can't get it out of you, like it's you wake up every day with that thought stirring in you, like go for it. Um, And the way you accomplish that is by, if you're a physician, joining a community like the EntreMD Business School, where people have done probably what you want to do and more, or something very similar, and can really help you along that path. And I think, people have said there's no shortcuts to life, but there is, right? Like EBS for me has essentially been a shortcut. I didn't have to learn all these lessons over a period of years. Um, so that's what I would say. Find yourself in a room where people are like you, where they're going to lift you up and not say, oh, that's not going to work, or be a downer. But again, be realistic. People are going to give you realistic advice. It's just not like, oh, yeah, 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 anything is possible. But, okay, here are the ways you can do it. And, here's what not to do, like give you, real tangible advice. And so that's what I would say. And really the sky is the limit.
And if you're listening to the podcast, you should come watch the video on YouTube because she's just lighting up. She's like, "The sky's the limit," and I think
Yes.
you've hit that place where you start playing the infinity game. It's kind of like, so what else is here? What else can I be? Like, what else is hidden on the inside of me, right? And it becomes more fun, even though there are challenges and all of that. But you're like, this is exciting. Let's do it.
Yes. 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 I mean, I'm practicing medicine with a much more, I think, with much more passion, and just knowing that I can serve my patients in very creative ways now, because it's my own business. And, I could have a master class one day, I could do a podcast another day, I could see a patient in the office one day, however it is that I want to reach patients. And so that is really exciting. And, I was sharing my experience with, EBS with a physician who, is in his 60s probably, and has had a practice, all his life. And he was like, man, I wish I had that when I was starting out, because I
Oh.
had to learn everything through the school of hard knocks. And he's like, yeah, everything that you're learning is spot on, but I wish I had had that. So I'm so glad I found the community, when I did. And I'm just really excited to see what's up for this year.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I've been yelling from the rooftops like this year is not ready. As I think some people think I'm kidding, but they'll see. This is
Yeah.
so good. So good. So listen, if you're listening to this podcast episode and you're like, man, I want to build a real business that will give me the freedom to live life, practice medicine on my terms. Like I am committed to it. I want to do that. Then the EntreMD Business School is almost custom made for you. Okay, so I want you to head over to entremd.com/business, go fill out an application. The team will meet with you and walk you through the details and all of that stuff. And if it's a great fit, we'll welcome you in. If it's not, we'll be like, yeah, maybe this is not what you're looking for. So we're not trying to manipulate anybody into coming. But if you're like, this is what I want to do, I want to be in a room full of people like Dr. Cheruba, then then EVS is for you. So entremd.com/business. Dr. Cheruba, where can people find you? And people listen for her Instagram because you need to follow her. She's a
Yes.
she's a force
Yes.
of nature.
My Instagram handle and my YouTube handle both are the Fibroid Doc. TheFibroidDoc, and my practice is in Lafayette, California, in the Bay Area.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Uh,
I'm just rooting for you because this is gonna be really, really good. So everyone,
thank you
thank you
so much.
for listening. Dr. Shruba, thank you for coming on. And I
Thank you.
want you to be a part of the change in medicine by sharing this episode with another doctor because you can never tell who's been there, is wanting to do more, has an idea where to start from, or doesn't even know their options, doesn't even know that these things exist. And you will be the bridge that opens the door for all kinds of possibilities for that person. So share the episode, and I will see you on the next episode of the EntreMD podcast. Hey, if you love listening to the EntreMD podcast, I want to invite you to join EntreMD On Demand. It is my signature subscription program that gives you access to a library of business courses designed to help you do one thing as a physician entrepreneur, and that is to thrive. Just head out to entremd.com/on demand, and I'd love to have you join us. See you on the inside. Hey, if you love listening to the EntreMD podcast, I want to invite you to join EntreMD On Demand. It is my signature subscription program that gives you access to a library of business courses designed to help you do one thing as a physician entrepreneur, and that is to thrive. Just head out to entremd.com/on demand, and I'd love to have you join us. See you on the inside.